this stuff is funny. Good evening, and welcome to my laboratory. I've always wanted to say that. You know, in this very room, some of the most advanced research in the field of neurobiology takes place. This is the human brain. Not used very often. And this is a comedian's brain, filled with knowledge, wit, and guts. And this is a half brain. It belongs to my agent. Thank you. Welcome to the California Institute of Technology. If my mother could see me now. I was thrown out of public school. Now I'm at the home of, 27 Nobel laureates. It's the home of the seismograph and the Richter scale. If we bomb tonight, it will be immediately recorded. Tonight we'll have several young comedians who will be talking about their life experiences, you know, politics, the drug culture, safe sex. I'm going to do about an hour on my arthritis right now. I've had an MRI, an EKG, a blood workup, a colonoscopy. That's just today. I have a brother. My oldest brother is a doctor and professor of medicine at Harvard Medical. He's professor emeritus, which means he don't have the job anymore. And for the last 6 months, I've been walking pretty slow. And my brother, in typical medical terms, said to me, "You're walking like an old Jew." Like this. Anyway, I'm so pleased that you all came here tonight. Actually, we're in Pasadena, so what else was there to do? I'd like to start the program. What I'd really like to do is sit down. This young lady's range of talent and scope of emotion are remarkable. She provides the voice of Peggy Hill on the Emmy Award-winning show King of the Hill. She stars opposite Kirstie Alley on the NBC comedy Veronica's Closet. I first saw her off Broadway. Actually, it was a garage. In a show called Kathy and Mo. Will you please welcome Kathy Najimy?
Thank you, my love. Thank you so much. I think I am right here.
This is one of the giants of comedy. He's 6'8.5" tall. A California boy who started working at comedy clubs. And in 1984, he became the first $100,000 grand champion in the comedy category, Star Search. This led to opening spots, and he's opened with some of the greatest headliners in the business. Many, many guest appearances on The Tonight Show. America started noticing him as the obsessive mechanic on Seinfeld. He really hit his stride as Ray Romano's brother on the CBS smash Everybody Loves Raymond, and now everybody loves Brad Garrett. This lady's a native of Montreal. I didn't know they had natives in Montreal. She gained a great deal of attention in a year-long stint at Catch a Rising Star in New York. Many television appearances since then has given her national acclaim. She's a frequent guest with Conan O'Brien. And in her 4th season as Aunt Hilda on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Please welcome Caroline Ray. Here's one of my favorite people. I first met him when he was a writer for Red Fox, and then watched him in the comedy clubs, the concert stage, television, film. He's done it all and continues to do it. He's just one of the best, and he's my buddy, the main man, George Wallace. It comes from oppression. Nobody in show business has more slashes than my friend Carl Reiner. What I mean by slash, actor slash, comedian slash, writer, director slash, producer slash, co-star of your show of shows, creator of the Dick Van Dyke Show, interviewer of the 2,000-year-old man. His films, The Jerk, All of Me, Oh God, etc., etc., etc. And on the side, he had enough time to conceive Rob Reiner, his son. Carl Reiner, ladies and gentlemen. I was so excited. This seminar is going to be pretty basic. First thing is, what we're really trying to find out for our audience is what's funny.
Oh, I should go.
A category he is not familiar with. George, what do you think? What's funny to you?
Mostly I talk about observations, like stupid things. I just flew in today. I'm standing at luggage by myself, and a lady comes over and says, "Mr. Wallace, you're mighty quiet." I said, "Well, hell, I'm standing here by myself,
Okay. Carl?
The unexpected is funny. I was thinking, here I am on a panel, what's funny? And I remember coming on television for the first time in 1948 and having known that you have to be visual. Well, you want to see what I thought was funny then?
Please.
There were two things. One was a 30-second impression of the picture of Dorian Gray. A man whose picture doesn't change, but he becomes, I mean, he doesn't change, but the picture, his portrait, picture of Dorian Gray. I'll do it twice, once
Please.
for the audience.
That's funny. Kathy, from a writer, as a writer, director, and of course a performing artist, what's funny? What do you think? What makes people laugh?
I think smart comedy is funny, and also observational, sort of slice of life. When I see a character that I recognize and somebody's really committed to it, I think that's really fun.
Yeah, I guess that is observation. Caroline?
Yes. Well, yeah.
Good.
You touched me.
I touched
so
you
I
because
figured
I'm just so happy to be here with you. Caroline. All right, let's go back to Caroline. Caroline.
I think everybody's going back to Caroline. It's with love.
Oh.
Bachelor number 2. Are you big? And I don't mean tall.
That's where my comedy is. Joke's on me.
Caroline?
I don't know. I find people falling funny. I find, that awful thing when my family laughed at absolutely everything.
Your family laughs at everything.
Yeah, everything was fair game. I think dark comedies, this is kind of a dark story, but I had called a friend of mine and I said to her that someone we knew had died. It gets better, don't worry. And they died. No. And so I called her back the next week and I said, you know what? It turns out that John didn't die. Ooh. And she said, I am so mad at you. I've told like 50 people he died. And I said, well, if it makes you feel better, he is terminally ill.
Brad, what do you think is going to make people laugh?
Oh, I love puppets, Alan. I think puppets, I can't get enough of puppets. Sometimes I'll just sit in a corner with a sweat sock and a button on it, and I am That to me is funny. When things come, when clothing comes alive. That's funny.
All right, I'm
That's
glad
funny.
I asked.
Or dead puppets. Dead puppets are funny. Jerry Mahoney died today. You better be that kind of funny. It's really, I don't know. I'm just happy to be working.
Yes.
I'll be honest with you. I don't
When, George, when...
This is unbelievable.
Yes, Alan.
It's like my agent.
George,
I don't have an
do
agent.
you remember the first 5 minutes stand-up professionally that you did?
I think I do. I was talking about, I had come to California for some reason, and I found a difference. You know, we always do, for some reason, I don't know what it was. Maybe
It
to
wasn't
buy,
the gold rush, was it?
no. It was to buy oranges on the side of the freeways. But it was the difference, you know, I was talking about the difference in California and New York, and I came out and I heard the word aftershock, and there's no such thing as aftershock. If I'm walking down the street and somebody kicks my butt, and I walk down another block and somebody kicks my butt again, is that an aftershock? That's another ass kicking, that's what that is.
Kathy, well, I know you started as an actress, but when did you start to get laughs and what were you doing?
Well, let's see. When did I start to get laughs and what was I doing? Well, in our house, we didn't. What's happening? He's always upstaging.
Yes, I get it.
You know, we grew up.
You guys cut it out over there.
Alan, when was the first time you got a laugh? It just happened.
I've worked with him before. After he gets his big laugh and somebody else is on, he calls the backstage person to fix his mic. So when the contest at the end and they hold a hand, who is the funniest, he always wins.
That's right.
Well, I've spent 3 days in Caltech. I mean, the brains of the world. The toilets don't flush.
When the mics don't work, obviously. It's is this
All right,
all right
now,
now?
Brad.
Yes.
Remember the first few minutes you did, first time you stood up?
Wait a minute, I didn't get to.
Oh, I thought you did.
And they were all on the edge of their seats waiting for my answer. Brad feels guilty because he didn't have time to shave. Just let go
That's
of
true.
it. We love you anyway.
Actually, I did shave. That's what's frightening.
I think when you, like, I grew up poor. We didn't have a lot of money, so we had to do things to make each other laugh. So we broke into people's houses and stole. No, we didn't.
Really?
No, so we had to stay home and, like, entertain each other, you know. And also, I grew up not looking like a Barbie doll, you know what I mean? I was a chubby little girl, and so I had to come up with ways to overcome that, which was to do lots of faces and impressions, and usually of thin girls. Which is the difference when you were talking about the difference between the East Coast and the West Coast, because on the East Coast you kind of can look like a normal person, but when you come to LA, I swear when I moved from New York to LA, there was a weighing station. I'm not kidding you. And you, in order to get into the city, you have to get on to the scale. And if you're like 10 pounds overweight, you get just a ticket, like a citation. And for 20, it's a misdemeanor. And anything over like 40 pounds, you go right to jail until you lose the weight. And that's why when people say, you know, I had lost a little weight, you know, why'd you do it? It's because I wanted to move to Los Angeles.
And when you move here to California, there's a lot of changes you have to get used to. Like the smog out here, and it's so bad that people don't even admit that they have smog. They wake up every morning, there's a heavy fog coming in off the freeway. and there's so many changes, and fog is so bad because I was white when I first moved out here, you see.
Remember the
Do I remember the first 5 minutes on
Yeah.
stage? They were horrifying, just horrifying. I completely and totally blanked. And this friend of mine from Australia, who is a close friend of mine, said, "You're really bad." Always good to pack the audience with the people who love you. It was terrifying. And then I bombed, and then I got kind of into bombing. I was like, I'm bombing and you're still paying. You know?
Brad?
Sure. My first 5 minutes, boy, this is
Seemed like an hour to me.
It did. It did. Excuse me, Caroline, I can't hear you over your top. I'm sorry. What is that?
That's
No.
a new joke of yours,
No,
Brad,
it is.
isn't
I
it?
know it is. We're just working it in.
For those of you at home, you novices, he just did what is known as a sly take.
Yes. Yes, you like that?
I love it.
Learned that from B. Arthur. Who I get mistaken for all the time.
Yes. First time I saw you,
Yeah.
you were doing all kinds of voices.
Well, I used to do, don't see, I would do a little bit of the cars because, well, no, because, see, the thing is that you got to understand about,
You know, you do that for 40 minutes and it
Oh, yeah.
gets tiring.
I would think so. Carl,
Yes.
now your early days, you documented in a wonderful book and then a great film, Enter Laughing. Aside from what you put on the screen and in your book, do you remember the first time you were funny?
The first time I was funny, probably not. But I remember my first day on the stage, and that was the most frightening thing in the world because I was in a play called, it was written about an Enter Laughing. Can we get serious for a moment? Because
Yes,
this is,
please, Carl. You do that so well.
I learned a part, it was called The Bishop Misbehaves. I was 17 years old, had a fake mustache, and I had never been in front of an audience before. I had never, so I'm walking around the back of the stage. My cue is there, looking for a way to get in. There's no way. In Enter Laughing, he busted the wall open and came through the wall. That wasn't what happened to me, but I came out on stage frightened because it was a little late, and I saw the audience, and I got so frightened that I wanted to blank them out. And what I did, and I did it for the first half of the first act, I crossed my eyes. So I couldn't see the audience. I couldn't see the audience, and I couldn't see the actors either.
But what I want to know is what drives you to stand up and do. I mean, you came out of, you went to college where, Atlanta?
I went to college in Ohio, University
That's
of
close?
Akron. Yeah, that's close, yes. I actually went to DeVry, but I like to lie a lot, you know.
No, but, you know, we've known each other. You studied what? You had a degree in
Marketing, transportation and marketing,
What is
yes.
how do you get a degree? What, did they teach you how to drive a truck? What did they do?
Well, how the hell did you get here?
No, but,
That's transportation. Most people don't know about it, but we can talk about transportation. No, it's the movement and
no,
shipment
but
of goods.
what I
and people.
want to know is here you had a pretty successful career.
I was making tons of money when I was in New York City selling advertising and things like that. I was making
What
so much money.
drove you to stand up on a stage and make a fool out of yourself like we've all done?
A fool.
Yes.
There is nothing like doing comedy. I can't tell you. It's my sex, it's my drugs. There's nothing better. And everybody up here, that's right, everybody, right? It's the greatest
Well,
feeling.
2 out of 3. Yeah.
You get an abundance of love. It's not like one person can satisfy you. You get, look at these people here. Now, you don't know me. I don't know you. They're paying me. And, you know, it's fun to do. Nothing is better than doing stand-up comedy, making people happy.
Can I ask you, do you remember your first 5 minutes?
Oh, sure.
Why don't you tell us?
Because I'm the host. And I don't have to say anything I don't damn please. No, I started in amateur shows. That, you know, the neighborhood kids. You know, I was one of 8 children, so the thing I looked for was attention. You see?
Right.
And so I was the corner clown, the street clown, you know, in the classroom, and I take the mustache and do, you know, the Führer, and then they had these amateur shows, and I went on an amateur show.
Did Hitler?
Hitler. I was the first
killed.
politically incorrect comic in Brooklyn.
You were a Jewish kid
I
going,
did a Jewish
ladies
Hitler.
and gentlemen,
Oh, yeah.
who loves Hitler?
Hey, let's hear it for Hitler.
Wacky Nazis. Nothing funnier than a Nazi.
That is funny. And so and then I went on Major Bowes. Very few people left alive that remember Major Bowes.
I dated Major Bowes.
You did? Well, it was the original amateur hour. In fact,
Frank Sinatra.
with all due respect, I was up at Harvard. We did a show at Harvard, and I talked about Major Bowes, and one youngster wanted to know what war he served in. I did. And so, you know, when I lost to a guy, you can't make this, I lost to a guy called Paul the Musical Plumber. I swear to you, remember, Carl? This guy took plumbing tools and made music out of it. took the rubber end of a toilet plunger and did Clyde McCoy's Sugar Blues, you know. Wah, 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 wah. He took a saw, a carpenter's saw, put it between his knees.
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
Remember that? Yeah. And with a cello bow he played, I want to go back to my... Anyway, went for high note and cut his testicles off. I thought we'd add a little cruelty to this humor. No, but we all start, but the need seems to be so great for all of us. At any level of success, I think that's what makes us very different.
I think if you're lucky enough to find out what the essence of who you are is, and if you're a comedian, it's that you're funny, it's the only time where you feel fully and totally alive is when you're doing it. And blissfully happy in front of strangers that you're making laugh, more so than any other time, much more so than a one-on-one conversation. There's some weird thing that comes, but it's the live comedy. It's the other part. It's the response that you get and this sort of dance that you do that's so much more fulfilling than television or, anything. It's just that weird interaction. The live connection that you get with the audience.
Do you write? I stole from everybody. I never wrote my name correctly, but...
You're not really Alan King, are you?
No. I'm really Erwin Allen Nyberg.
Oh, see, there you go.
And,
doing Hitler.
For the world, doing Hitler.
Yeah. Is this working?
Do you?
No, because they had to change it, and I'm a little worried.
Do you?
I think it's picking up.
And we'll just go open it up. When you do your comedy, is it from a personal experience? Does it start with your own
Usually it does.
life experience?
Well, what happens with me, I just notice everything that happens, like coming here, and I'm wondering, from the airport, why is my cab fare higher than my airfare to get over here to where I am? Simple things like that.
Also, it's really, it's therapeutic in a way, because we wrote the Kathy and Mo show because we had some things to say and we thought, we're gonna do things that we think are funny. We don't care if anybody else does. And that turned out to be the best thing we ever did because it was of us and things that we thought were important and things that we had observed and that we thought were hilarious. And I think when you start from there, people really respond.
So then, what is it with us that we fail and fail and fail and we continue to do it? When you did it and died, did your brain say, well, I could do it another way? I mean, what took place?
With different medication. That's really the key to everything. No, it's again, the ones that go up there and die and don't do it again don't have that thing that they have to. I mean, it's like any...
There's an art to dying, too, As Caroline said earlier, that you die so much that you get used to dying. And you go, I didn't die as bad as I died last week.
That's exactly right.
And that's what happens. And see, people in the audience, sometimes in New York when we started, people in the audience would actually shout out, you suck. And you'd say, oh, you should have seen me last week. I really sucked last week. And you get used to it, and then you go back and forth, and all of a sudden you're used to, well, I'm getting good now. I'm getting good.
I don't know that you ever wake up when you're little and make the conscious decision that you're going to be a comic performer. I think you try different things, and then you're funny, and somebody laughs, and you go, okay, that's good. I'm going to make somebody laugh again.
It's a fleeting thing. I was once opening for one of your friends, Mr. Sinatra, and the thing with him is when he wants to go on, he just comes out, he takes your mic, and he says, get in a car, But seriously,
that's right.
And
No.
When I started working with him, I would ask the stage manager, I would say, how long should I do it? And they would go, you do 10, you do 30, you never know. And I go, well, how do you know? A comic has to know. If you're doing 10, you start differently if you do 30. And one night I'm doing 15, I'm dying miserably because I'm in Atlantic City, New Jersey, his hometown, and I'm dying miserably, and I feel a tug on the mic, and Mr. S is in the wings going, wrap it up, So I end up saying to Joker, I go, okay, you guys have been great. Stick around for Frank. I was trying to be cute. And I go to the dressing room, and a couple of his guys, they were knocking on the door, and they go, what does it mean, stick around for Frank? And I said, I was making fun of myself, and they, well, we thought you said stick it to Frank. And then,
when I worked with Frank,
yeah.
If you had your wish list, what would you like to achieve in your career, in your career lifetime? Where do you want to go?
Well, I really like where I started was comedy with a point of view, and that's my passion, and that's really what I'm attracted to. People who do comedy that it comes from their brain and their soul and their heart, and so I really want to keep doing comedy. You know, I like issue.
But would you like to have your own sitcom?
Yes, I would. Yeah, I'd like my own show.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
No, I'm not a big TV fan.
Well, would you, then what? Dramatic? Would you like to be Maureen Stapleton as you grow older?
Surely.
Dramatic star?
Yeah, I'll be Maureen.
Right. Where would you like, let's
Spin
put it
off.
on the line. Would you like your own, you know, you've been up and coming and you're the spin-off. Ray Romano's told me, he says he's the next spin-off. Would you consider a sitcom?
I'd love to do an hour drama. I would love to do something like play like a giant accountant or something. Where they're just really like that is like someone that is like someone who is able to audit like 11 people at once. You know, that I could just you know.
Caroline, you raised your hand when I talked about sitcom. Is that what?
Yes, I would like to never work with an animatronic cat again. I would like never to hear from the cameraman, Caroline, you're blocking the cat. I would like to be the youngest one on the set. I would like to actually not have magical powers. And no, I would love to do just a great comedy about how, I don't think there's any comedy for women my age, very young, that's as, like I love Sex and the City. I think that's a great show, but I don't think it's exactly accurate. It's not the most accurate portrayal of
Better in the suburbs, I'm told.
Yeah.
I would like the master at the far end.
Yes, sir.
Who is really, I mean, we've talked about sitcoms, probably one of the most popular shows on television of all times was the Dick Van Dyke Show.
The best show.
Dick Van Dyke was funny. You had wonderful people. You created it. You appeared as part of the ensemble cast. They were very charming, warm, funny people. Everything I look at television now, everybody's dysfunctional.
We reflected our times.
Right.
Time is, situation comedy today reflects the times. It's quick cuts. Now, here's a very interesting thing. I was on a panel the other day say, what's the big difference between then and now? Well, we know that the walls have been pushed way aside. The word hole is in every night you hear somebody say it on prime time.
What's that word again?
What I was complaining about, I was saying, well, if you can use the shock words, you don't have to think quite as much when you're writing. You have to word it well, turn a phrase well. You throw in the shock word and you'll get your laughs.
But what I really want to know is it that that comedy has lost its humanity, or has society lost its humanity?
No, there are shows that still have humanity. Cosby's still on, the Ray Romano show. I think the King of Queens has got. There are a lot of shows that have humanity, even, and that's a very comedy show, Veronica's Closet. But it's about people struggling. It's about the struggle. However, it's much easier to get a laugh with a sexual reference than it is to build a problem between a husband and a wife and a people. And times have changed, and all the shows reflect the times.
But the thing about the Dick Van Dyke Show is, even though it was of its time, even today, it's still the best television show on TV.
Well, you mentioned the fact that if it comes from your heart, when the Dick Van Dyke Show came about, because I did a variety review show for 9 years on the Show of Shows, and I asked myself a question: what piece of ground do I stand on that nobody else stands on? And I'm saying and I talked to myself. I said, I'm an actor, writer. I worked in television in a variety show. I live in New Rochelle. I have 2 kids. Well, I'll write about that. And that's exactly what I did. If you write about yourself, it connects to everybody, because everybody is very, very similar. A couple of people are different here, but most of you are similar.
It just wasn't also about jokes every 2 seconds, but that show was about people and a story.
I want to take it back to what's happening now. Most of you are products of the comedy clubs.
Right.
You know, you were off Broadway. I mean, I'm talking about the beginning. What happened? The demise of there was a comedy club on every corner. And then all of a sudden, what, George?
I tell you exactly what happened. Not only on every corner, it was on every freeway exit, too. It was a comedy club everywhere you went, you know. So what happened, comedy became popular, and then television brought us about, and television made us, and television killed the comedy clubs at the same time. Because they would watch Comic Strip Live and see a comedian do 5 minutes, and then they go to the club to see this guy. He still had 5 minutes that they saw on television, and comedy clubs started to die out.
Well, I think a lot of it was cable. You know, people used to go to people used to go to the comedy clubs to hear the comedy they couldn't hear on TV.
Right.
You know, the stuff that was kind of lowbrow or different or a little more edgy. And, you know, with all the cable stations, they just figured, hey, why, you know.
No, you can turn on Comedy Central and see every comedian for free.
And that's the demise
That's
of...
what happened.
Yeah, I like it. For me, it's sort of different amounts that I've weighed over 11 years on Comedy Central. Oh, my hair looks terrible. Oh, I'm so fat here. Oh, here I am. You know, it's ridiculous. You know what I think is really frightening? I've done comedy for 11 years, and the biggest difference I noticed, and tell me if this is true for you, clubs are so segregated now. They are all white audiences. Right. Everywhere I go in the country. It used to be when I started, audiences were mixed, and they were great, and everybody was getting everything. Now, the more I go, I was just in Nashville, there was not a black person in the audience. George?
No, wait.
Same thing. I was in a comedy club in Africa last week. All white people, you know. But that is true in a way. But they're also segregated because there's also black clubs to themselves now. I don't, you know, there's separation. Right. I don't know why. I don't know how. Fortunately, I work all the rooms. But there is a difference. That's what happened. It started to, you know, you came out with BET and what was the HBO? When it was Def Comedy Jam. And that kind of separated the comedy
I
market
was
there.
working a Klan rally, but now I am kidding.
And that's why I met you at a Klan rally, too. And I love to shoot
All
you
right,
on.
let me just stop for a moment. Where did you come up with the name George Wallace?
My daddy is George Wallace. There's 9 George Wallaces in my family. Matter of fact, you know, there's so many kids. Both my grandmothers had 21 kids, you know. And I saw my grandmama the other day. She's pregnant right now, but that's a different story.
No, come on.
But there are
Your
9
real
George
name
Wallaces.
is George Wallace?
I don't have to lie to you. You ain't nobody, Alan.
You've written all these characters over the years?
Yes.
If you wanted to or cared to write a sitcom for yourself, tell us, off the top, how do you think you would write a sitcom that you would star in? What kind of character do you see yourself as in what's happening in television?
Maybe like a wife with maybe like a Cuban husband, a little boy who plays drums. No.
I like that.
I feel.
Call him Desi.
I like call him Desi. Yeah. I like playing myself because I think I'm fascinating. So I think I'd probably play a woman close, you know, in late 20s, and I like the idea of we really don't see the experience of like the Sex and the City women who kind of maybe look more like a normal person.
Right.
Looks.
like they have body fat. I saw this incredibly beautiful supermodel, one of the like single name supermodels, because they don't have enough energy to say 2 names, but eventually it'll be, oh look, there's but she was walking down the street and she was so beautiful. I can't remember which one it was, but she had the biggest puss face. She was like, and I thought, what has she got to be unhappy about? And I thought, you know what? She's probably hungry. Yeah. She hasn't had a snack ever.
All of you were children of television.
Yes.
The first images you ever saw in show business was not in the theater. You're young enough to have been in the early days. Red Red
Skelton.
Skelton. You like Red Skelton?
I like Red Skelton, Red Fox, Red Buttons, Pinky Lee, people of color. You know,
Betty White.
Betty White, yeah.
Betty White.
I thought in a discussion of comedy, and I don't think I haven't heard it discussed, why did the black Afro-American population, why
Make up your mind. You want us to be black, Afro-American, or colored, or what you want us to be?
You know, people are so worried about being politically correct that they're losing so much humor in that. I mean, everyone is funny, and it's dumb people are dumb people, and they come in all colors, and it's too bad because, you know, growing up, when All in the Family came out, you know, I mean, I was 12 years old at the time, and I saw this, and I couldn't believe it. And
you couldn't believe it, what, for the contents or the humor?
for the content and the humor. And I mean, I thought it was incredibly brilliant. And to this day, it's a show that stands up. And I thought it was wonderful.
But people would think you couldn't get away with it now. It's so politically incorrect.
The thing about All in the Family, though, is I think it was politically correct because it dealt with issues that had never been dealt with before on television. It dealt with racism and multiracial partnerships and rape even and all, you know, the war, and also I thought it was really the essence of politically correct, which is informing and being funny and respecting. And I think it had a lot of respect. I don't think it just made fun of people for just shock value, which is politically
incorrect. You loved that character because it was so true to who he was.
Oh, it was a very smart,
the majority of the bad mail they got were white people because they saw themselves so much in that, and that's what really got them uptight.
Anyway, I don't know where the hell I am at this point. Let's just open this up a bit. Members of the audience, I'm sure you all have some questions that you'd like to ask. The ground rules, these are the ground rules.
I'm being funny over here.
Oh, yeah. The ground rules are, if you have a question, get up, ask the questions. I don't want to know who you are, where you come from, who the hell cares? Just ask the question.
We're at the California Institute of Technology, but it seems like television shows that actually have characterizations of California don't carry for a season. Why don't shows about California and Californians carry for the rest of the country?
Because the rest of the world can't relate.
The rest of the world can't relate, is that what you said?
No, it's such a... Living in Los Angeles is like living in a theme park. It really is.
True.
It is.
Let's not forget Baywatch. That's California. Come on, that's a beautiful show.
That is a very...
Good.
It is a good show.
1, 2, 5.
And that is an ensemble, and it's well written.
Yes.
Those two things.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
There's a lot of good sets.
I'd like to ask the whole panel, what's the most courageous thing you ever did to liberate your career into the success that it became?
I dressed up like a bunny and did a singing telegram to Bette Midler.
Wow. Yeah, I know.
Caroline.
I performed for the president. Stand up. Just stand up. And... Sorry.
And you did, actually.
Yeah, he had a very full schedule, so and I think when he leaves office, they are going to refer to it as the Bush administration. Okay, all right. Hey now.
All right, Brad.
Well, when I was starting out, I was trying to get an agent like I still am 20 years later, which is funny, isn't that pathos?
Why do I get
I dressed
scared?
up, I rented a buddy of mine worked at Western Costume, and the public is not allowed to rent a police uniform, but he actually let me borrow one for a day, and I subpoenaed myself into an agent's office. And let me tell you how good this went over. I ended up having to do community service.
Wow. 2 years
George?
of dinner theater company in
I don't know
Omaha.
what the most courageous thing I've ever done. I had to perform as, I dressed as Oprah Winfrey one time.
Oh, my.
You had to take off a little weight.
No, this was when she had one.
Is there any other questions? Someone?
George is famous for doing the dozens. Could you all do some
okay.
dozens for us?
Oh, there's a thing called doing the dozens.
Yes.
Right?
snapping.
And what is it? It's a street, neighborhood?
It's basically something we did when we were poor. We didn't have a lot to play with, toys or anything like that. We sit around and chat, and all of a sudden you run out of things to talk about. You start talking about each other's parents.
Parents.
Yeah, like your mama. And that's how the joke would go. We just start talking about your mama did this, and your mama's so ugly, you know. Like, Alan, your mama's so ugly, she walked by the bathroom and the toilet just flushed by itself.
Now, what do I do? Then I answer you?
Then you come back to me and you say something to me like, my mama's so funky, she used secret and it told on her. And then we just go back and I'll say, Caroline, mama's so stupid, she's walking down the street, she saw a sign that said YMCA. She said, look, baby, somebody spelled Macy's wrong. And you just keep going.
Your mom was so dumb that she saw a sign said airport left, so she left.
Your mama's so fat she has a real horse on her polo shirt.
Wait, let's change.
When you do other, your mama's so ugly she go in the woods, the trees pee on her. Go, let's change it, let's do it.
It's time to change it to your daddy.
Your daddy. Yeah, like I did know your daddy's so old when
There we
Moses
go.
parted the Red Sea, he was on the other side fishing. You can just go, yes, so
We
that's
have
a king in a dozen. Some of these kids might know some jokes like
Is
that.
that what it's called? Doing the day.
Playing
It's
the
like a
dozen.
challenge. You
Yes.
know, it certainly beats the hell out of beating each other up, don't
You
it?
just sat around, you had fun, and you just told all the jokes until all of a sudden somebody would say something. Well, I saw your mama with Mr. Otis Johnson last night.
That's what I was going to say.
Hold it, wait a minute, those are fight words. Because everybody knew this could be true.
You know, George, years ago, there was on PBS, there was a benefit in London at the Palladium Theatre, these incredible Monty Python. And they're the best. And they did a sketch where all the boys were sitting around like we're sitting now, and they said, I was so poor.
Oh, those were the best.
Remember that?
Shoebox, absolutely.
I was so poor that we lived in a shack. And then the other one, it was a contest of who was poorer.
And then the other one would go, oh, you were lucky.
Yes.
You were lucky. We lived in a wee shoebox.
Yes.
With a little thing of
We
matches.
lived in a hole in the ground. We lived in...
We were so poor that somebody, for every Christmas, they gave us a box of donuts. And then they took them away and hid them till the next Christmas.
And then they'd go on and say, we were so poor, I didn't have, my daddy was this, and they go, you had a daddy?
Question.
This question is for Mr. Reiner. What was it like writing with Mel Brooks?
Mel Brooks is, to me, the funniest human being
Let me
I
take
know.
it. Let me take another step. When you talk about Mel Brooks,
Writing
how was it like writing with Neil Simon, Mel Brooks, Mel Tolkien, Larry Gelbart?
Larry Gelbart.
Give us a sense of what it was like being around Sid Caesar and all the names that I mentioned.
Well,
what happened? I mean, what was going on?
It even exists today when there are comedy writers getting together. That's part of the excitement of being a writer with other comedy writers. Part of the thing you're creating is laughter. First of all, you're laughing at things you're saying for the show, but you're also funny people, so you're laughing at making fun for yourselves. Sid was the big arbiter. Sid used to sit around with a fake pantomime gun or pantomime machine gun.
No, it was a real gun.
No, and he would hear a joke, and if he didn't like the joke, he wouldn't react any other way but go, he shot it out of the sky.
Question.
Is there one day in your career or at one point where you thought, I want to give this up and maybe do something else
Right
besides
now.
comedy? Okay.
I also want him to give it up today. So, the two of us.
Carol?
I had done a pilot. It didn't get picked up. I completely bombed in front of a huge crowd, and I was dumped on the first day. I felt like Job. And I was like, I so want to quit this. But luckily, I had this really understanding manager who was really evil and Australian, and she said, you should quit. Yeah. And I was like... And then she said, you'd make a fantastic teacher. And I thought, you, I'm never quitting. Sorry. Oh, I was going to say, there are certain things that I don't know if you've had this experience, but about certain things that you shouldn't say on stage. You have this feeling like swearing or whatever. But if I can talk about sex from a female perspective. I've had many people come up to me and say, you know, I don't really like hearing a woman talk about that. And every time I hear that, I think, well, then I'm never not telling that joke again, because there should be nothing that a woman shouldn't be able to say on stage.
Absolutely.
Well,
But
do you think?
they feel that way.
Yeah.
That there are certain things women shouldn't talk about, but it's okay if a man
Well,
talks about them.
Was it women's lib? Did women's lib open it up?
Yeah, I mean, you were right. There were two things that women starting out could talk about: how ugly they were,
Right.
or something about their husbands. They could never really talk about their point of view, what they found funny, something in their lives. Even Joan Rivers, who's brilliant, for 20 years had to talk about how fat or ugly or what was wrong with their face. And then, of course, with the women's movement, women started talking about things that they think are interesting, which include some things about their husbands or how they look, but a world of other things too. And I would love to go back and get those women now and make some of them resurrect and see what kind of comedy that they would do. I think they would be brilliant. Phyllis Diller, I mean, they're funny women, but they were only allowed to talk about two things.
Well, do you feel that Lucille Ball?
Lucille Ball was not a stand-up comic.
No,
She
no,
was
no, I
an
don't
actress.
mean that, but Lucille Ball was a beautiful woman.
That's true.
Who did
comedy,
funny things. I mean, she'd black out her teeth and she'd do all the shticks,
But that's a
Was that a
difference.
breakthrough?
It was a breakthrough as far as pretty women being comedians, but it was not a breakthrough as far as stand-up comedy, because the stand-up comedian made comments. She never made any comments. She was not a comedian. She was a great actress, a great comedy actress.
I would like to ask each of our guests a very personal question.
Yes, they're real.
Hell, they couldn't be faked. I'd like to ask the question and the question is, who influenced you in your career? Was there someone that you looked at and said, I want to do what they're doing, I want to be like them? Let's start with George.
Professionally, we're speaking.
Oh, yes, of course.
That would be Red Skelton with the characters. I just think he was the best, and he's the reason I'm in the business. I loved him doing the characters, and everything he could do just cracked me up. And that was before, he never said a dirty word, and I just loved him.
Is there
Lucille Ball, big time, Lucille
Really?
Ball, and Dick Van Dyke. And what about records? Did you listen to comedy records? There used to be these round things called records. They were black, and there was a little hole in the middle, and you put them on. And I would listen to Alan, hello, mother, hello,
Alan Sherman.
I would listen to Alan Sherman. Oh my God, I'm so old. And Bill Cosby and Monty Python and Cheech and Chong.
George Carlin.
And George Carlin and
But as an adult, I would have to say Lily Tomlin and Bette Midler were the big, because Lily Tomlin was the first. Isn't she great? She's like the Lord. With again, all of her comedy coming from so smart and coming from characters and reality, and I have admired her, and she paved the way for me to do Kathy and Mo. And of course, there's nobody like Bette Midler. Bette Midler too inspired me because she didn't look how I thought movie stars were supposed to look, and she sort of changed. Whoopi Goldberg did this too. Changed sort of the face of what a movie star, what a famous person could look like, which was a different kind of beauty, and that was really inspiring to me.
And before you go to him, I would be crazy if I didn't mention Richard Pryor also.
Oh, yes.
An inspiration to me, yeah. I mean, he just...
Richard Pryor inspired me after I was on my way out of the business.
Yesterday.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
When Richard started with the language, I was, it shook me.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened was his genius, his body movement, his concept. I never heard another dirty word. The dirty words didn't mean anything to me. It was like watching the Paul Taylor dances. I had never seen comedy choreographed that beautifully as Richard. Marvelous. Brad.
Don't say Richard Pryor now.
No, I won't. I won't.
Okay.
Don't say
No,
Beyonce.
seriously. No, I really would.
Paul Taylor dancers. It was like comedy. No, Cosby was huge for me.
Bill Cosby was really?
Huge for me, huge.
Really?
Woody Allen growing up. My dad turned me on to Woody Allen when I was 10. I went to Woody Allen. Unbelievable. That's great.
Very didactic.
And first time I ever saw Don Rickles on The Tonight Show is when I knew I wanted to do stand-up, because I couldn't believe this guy would come on and create this and just talk to these legends the way he did and get away with it and be funny. So that's when I really went, boy, I want to.
Well, Rickles had a lot of guts, to say the least. He was working at a club in Los Angeles, and we walked. It was Bob Hope in the audience. He says, "Bob, why don't you start another war so you can become popular again?"
Gotta love it.
And then he looked at Frank Sinatra. He says, "Frank, make yourself at home. Hit somebody."
Now, what's better than that?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great comedy. Caroline?
Carol Burnett,
Yeah.
who I just completely, I just thought I wanted to be her. Lucy, he said it earlier, but B. Arthur I find hilarious. And Maude was so brilliant in her takes. And then Johnny Carson, who I thought was just the most, and I still think he's the most gracious person, because to really be funny is to make someone else funny. And that's what he always did. And I always thought, I want to be him. I want to be all those people.
I wouldn't let Carl Reiner get off this stage unless he just spends a moment.
I must tell you, it'll take
Tell
about
me
3 minutes, 4
how
minutes.
you got the Shakespearean role.
Well, what happened is how I started to do comedy. Accidentally, I was on a Shakespearean touring company, and I had learned King Claudius in 4 days and was laying lightly on my head, and I wasn't being funny. I'll do it for you. I'll recreate that moment. And from that moment on, when I got into the Army, I remembered this and got into a special service company doing comedy. Because I'll give you the. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. King Claudius has these lines in the 4th act. "Oh, Gertrude, Gertrude, when sorrows come, they come not single spies, but in battalions. The people muddied in their thoughts for poor Polonius's death." And then there's this much more, and that's all I remembered, that much. Laertes is waiting to come in. He's waiting for his cue. The first 3 rows are the Dramatic Society with their scripts, knowing the cuts. They're sent the cuts, and they're looking through the. I start, and I'll try to recreate it. "Oh, Gertrude, Gertrude, when sorrows come, they come not single spies, but in battalions. The people muddied in their thoughts for poor Polonius's death doth the very calls of Femitol doth freight upon the cold and aimed upon the same pole. That I, with the very calls of Femitol, doth call upon the thanes of Conor, the prince of Glamis, and the very falls of Rome, and Union Gap, and traced it for the fall, that he traced the fall." And I gave him one of these eyes, and he came in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Caltech, thank you very much for your hospitality, for your allowing us the use of the hall. It's been fun for us. I hope it's been amusing and enlightening for you. Good night. To find out more, visit pbs.org or America Online. Keyword PBS.